Mustafa Kemal Ataturk is the national hero of Turkey. He led Turkey from a nation overwhelmed by the victors over the Ottoman Empire to an amazing and dramatic modernization and westernization.
His ideas were known as Kemalism ideology, and with these powerful ideas, he socially, politically, and economically created the modern nation of Turkey from an empire that was seen as the sick man of Europe at the turn of the century.
He was born in the year 1881 in Thessaloniki, within the Ottoman Empire, current-day Greece. His full name was Mustafa Kemal, and the Ataturk surname meant "father of the Turks," and was given to him by the Turkish people.
Mustafa Kemal had a strong background in military, and he served in the Ottoman army. In World War I, he was the colonel in charge of the infantry at Gallipoli in 1915, and it was his superior defense tactics that prevented the Allied forces from capturing the Dardanelles and eventually Bosphorus.
When the war finally concluded, the Sultan and many of the people saw a hopeful future in the acceptance of either a British or American mandate. Ataturk, however, had a very different vision. On May 19, 1919, the day the War of Independence officially began.
First with undersized encounters and ultimately with full troop opponents, Ataturk and his armies fought the enemies. Ataturk and his friends wanted to replace the monarchy with a republic. The War of Independence took 3 years to win, and by 1922 all invaders fled. The birth of a new nation had begun.
Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, the father of Turkey, began the interrelated 6 arrows of Kemalism, which included reformism, nationalism, secularism, populism, republicanism, and statism. Mustafa Kemal based all his principles on reformism to secure that these ideas and happenings will become legacies forever.
Now that he was the president and leader of the Republic of Turkey, his policies and reforms began. He wanted complete independence of the country.
Under nationalism, Mustafa Kemal wanted to break the customs of the Ottoman Empire and replace them with a new Turkish language and a new Western culture in order to establish people's loyalty to the nation, united in race, culture, and emotion.
To be followed, not just somebody whose commands had to be respected. He seemed to be a person to whom loyalty was unusually worth giving.
Mustafa Kemal encouraged all Turks to wear modern European clothing. He wanted to make Turkey as unlike as the Islamic society as possible. Therefore, he was determined to force people not to wear traditional Islamic clothing. In 1925, the Western calendar was introduced, and in 1928, the International Numeric System first appeared.
On November 1st, 1928, Mustafa Kemal presented the new Turkish alphabet to replace the Arabic script. Mustafa himself traveled around the country to teach the new alphabet.
Mustafa Kemal focused in establishing the separation of government and religion. By doing so, all educational systems needed to be changed. Kemal focused and modernized the classical local village education. In 1924, he met with the American educational reformer, John Dewey. Finally, on March 23, 1924, the law of unification of education became effective, and education became inclusive and organized, as well as operated on a deliberate model of civil community.
Mustafa abolished the caliphate, or Muslim ruler, in 1924, therefore changing the country from a theocracy to a secular modern republic. In 1926, Mustafa Kemal presented a radical change from previous establishments by the Ottoman Empire. For the first time in history, Islamic law was clearly separated.
The Hat Law of 1925 introduced the use of Western hats instead of the traditional fez. At the beginning of this new law, he forced students and government employees. The wearing of the fez which had been introduced a century earlier as a modernizing reform to replace the turban, was outlawed because it had become, for the nationalists, a symbol of the reactionary Ottoman regime.
On March 1st, 1926, Turkey's first penal code was passed. It closed Islamic courts. However, it takes time for a new civil department to be built, so he began to develop ideas of integrating women into the social and political life. Ataturk wanted Turkish women to dress, get an education, and have careers as those in other civilized countries. Kemalism ideology of populism aimed to destroy the class privilege and class distinction, recognizing no individual, no family, no class, and no organization as being above others, a social revolution.
Because Mustafa Kemal wanted to incorporate women into the social and political life, he needed a new civil code. On October 4th, 1926, the Turkish Civil Code was passed, after the Swiss Civil Code. Women were made much more equal to the men.
On December 5th, 1934, Turkey granted full political rights to all legal women.
We didn't fight for our rights, we were given our rights.
Mustafa Kemal defined republicanism as a constitution where head of state and other officials are elected as representatives of the people. These positions are to be chosen by election. The president shall not have direct executive powers, but have some veto powers. The Council of Ministers, formed by the Prime Minister and the other ministers, is separated from the executive powers, the legislative and the judiciary. However, not one branch of government has power over the other.
Republicanism meant transforming the outlook of people, the adoption of Western ways, confronting ignorance and superstition, and importing new techniques together with the expansion of economic developments and sciences.
The principle of statism was interpreted to mean that the state was to regulate the country's general economic activity, and the state was to engage in areas where private enterprise was not willing to do so, or where private enterprise has proved to fail. All of these vital actions that Mustafa Kemal Ataturk took made Turkey one of the most technologically advanced and richest countries in the world. It can be said that Turkey is ahead of its time comparing to its surrounding areas, such as the right for women to vote and have laws that protect the citizens.
Kemal is really Ataturk. He is a father of the Turks. That's what his name means, and therefore he is highly significant. And matter of fact, identified basically with the whole Turkish nation. So Turkey today would probably not be the Turkey that we know without Kemal Ataturk.
Today, Turkey, like other Middle Eastern countries, is facing tough challenges. Some of these challenges include the rising of Islamic fundamentalists and pushes for Kurdish recognition. Today, all of his reforms are legacies and are in place everywhere within Turkey, with the constitution securing them in place.
Mustafa Kemal Ataturk clearly and single-handedly led Turkey to a modern nation and will be remembered as a national father and hero forever.
In 1937, indications that Mustafa's health was worsening began to appear. He was diagnosed with cirrhosis of the liver due to heavy drug use. He tried to keep up with his regular lifestyle as long as possible. Mustafa Kemal Ataturk died on November 10, 1938, at the age of 57.
His funeral was filled with sorrow and pride, with over 27 countries sending representatives and their deepest condolences. His remains were buried in a 42-ton sarcophagus in a mausoleum in Ankara. His statues can be found around the world as a sign of pride and remembrance, and to acknowledge that his legacies will live forever.